You want to go on next week? What day do you want to go?
Today's Wilson's birthday.
What?
The crap.
Is he forgetting to say something?
It's his birthday. Did he say how old he is?
He's like
No, it's
34.
on Populi. He's pretending it doesn't exist.
What? Make a life crisis moment.
All right. So we're
It's gonna
just.
be hard to print the whole.
Marlissa's not here. Is Theo not coming?
He's coming, he just likes to get here right with us.
Theo!
Since I woke up this morning, I've been
I thought somebody was in trouble.
I thought I was. Say my name.
That's fine.
It doesn't see, is Marlissa coming? Do we know that?
Silly. I don't know.
She
Okay.
might be maybe.
Here he is.
Theo! Let's go.
He makes it with 1 minute to spare.
My God.
You know, you should come earlier than that.
Picture of it. We both like.
You guys, after Theo got all American, Gentry picked him upside down, flipped him upside down, and gave him the spanking to keep him humble. Talking about spanking.
Wow.
If you want to see the video,
What?
talk to me after class.
And it's on video. We got it on video.
Oh,
Is this adult Theo?
This is this what?
Just whipped
That's
him
adult
right
Theo?
up like he was a little runt. Oh, somebody brought their laundry today.
I think you're still.
Oh, what the?
Marlissa for the W. Woo! Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad. Thanks for clapping. That might be the most I've ever done.
All right, how about one of our ladies pray today? Any of our ladies want to pray for us today? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day and that we can be here at class and learn about marriage and family and please help everything to go well for everyone and that the rest of the day will be good too. Thank you, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Okay, so after talking about all the parenting stuff, how do you guys feel about parenting?
Oh, we'll be ready.
You're ready?
Super.
You're ready?
I want 14 kids.
All right, does it make you feel more confident about it or less confident?
I know what to do.
I
wouldn't say
I need 2 minivans.
You got a framework.
Communication is key. Things like that.
Less
Okay.
freaked out about it.
What's that?
Less freaked out about it.
You're less freaked out. How
Yes.
come?
How come?
Yeah,
Because knowledge is power.
knowledge is
I need help.
All right, does anybody have any further questions that you want to talk about in the realm of parenting?
Are there any cheat codes?
Cheat codes for
Yeah.
parenting?
Up,
Yeah.
down,
No,
down,
you
left,
just
right.
go.
Hey, maybe I should go into a business
Yeah.
selling cheat codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the cheat code right
There we
there.
go.
Write a book.
I think I want like 8 kids.
Or you guys can adopt me as a grandparent.
Yo, right.
Would I get free tuition then?
It's free tuition. Well,
That's if
yeah,
she's your
maybe
parents.
if you became my kid, but no.
Oh.
I'm not planning on adopting anybody.
It'd just be for like 2 more years.
Old enough to take care of myself.
All right, so
And this
today
own
we are going to
18
start
years
going
old.
over, we're going to move back into marriage then.
Yeah.
Seeing that you guys feel all confident about being parents. All right, don't make the mistakes that maybe your parents made. So you drop those
Don't
things.
drop your baby on his head.
Oh my God.
Did you get dropped?
Yes, I got thrown out of the
I got quite a bit of stitches. So I'm not really
I
sure.
didn't put you in a single cup.
Hey, it's okay, my
She's
mom
like,
got
yeah, I got
me
your
right
finger
there.
in the
Yeah,
controller. You can have this. Ay, All right, so today we're going to look at marriage and family life in the middle to late years. All right, so we're fast forwarding, guys.
No more kids.
Like,
What? Hey. I wanna keep my-
you might have kids now, but this is like 20 years from now in your world. All right, so you've got to like get your mind into a gear of thinking older.
What do you think,
40
kids
by
at
now.
college or after college?
I forgot I'm 20.
Kids during or after college? It's probably easier to not focus on them while you're in college, but hey,
Yes,
if a kid comes when you're in college,
yes, so be it.
I mean, what's better than having a kid at Trinity,
No, for real.
right? Everybody will love your baby.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Honestly, so many babysitters for free.
Just jump
All
to
right,
eight.
so we're going to middle late years.
Just
So
jump to
this
eight
would
now.
basically coincide with middle age and older people. Yeah.
Was this week gonna be on the exam at all?
No.
No, none of this
Okay,
week is on
exam
the
opens today,
Okay.
Mhm.
right after class. It is on chapters 1 through 6, and then the Sacred Marriage and Family, Sacred Marriage lecture.
So no 7?
No 7.
7 on this. Okay.
Is it
Okay.
like multiple choice?
There are multiple choice questions, true, false.
And it's open book, but not
Maybe
open.
there's matching. I don't know. I haven't looked
But
at
like
it.
no like written down answers?
No
There's
essay,
no
fill in the
write-ins.
blank.
No.
Okay.
Right away.
And it's open book. You have to take it on your own if this is on an honor system. You're on your own. You're not using AI. You're using book. You're using notes.
Okay.
Time limit of an hour.
How many questions
Okay.
was it again?
55 to 60 realm, somewhere in there.
2.
20% of your grade.
A minute per question.
Oh my god.
The midterm, you popping off?
All right, any other questions on that? All right, closes tomorrow, 5 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. What? Closes tomorrow, 5 o'clock.
Exam
Opens after class today, closes 5 tomorrow.
before supper.
During supper.
All right, we good? Okay. All right, so first thing that we're going to look at is different stages of life. All right, we're looking at middle to late years in marriage. So we're just going to kind of look at ways that sociologists divide the stages of life into categories. So there's 2 different theories here. So the first one is Levinson's, and then the second one would be Erickson's. So Levinson's 4 eras are, that was a lot of ERs, is first one's childhood and adolescence, so 0 to 22. Early adulthood, we've got overlap here, 17 to 45. And then middle adulthood, 40 to 65, and late adulthood, 60 plus. So today we're basically looking at the 40 plus age range for marriage. All right, if you were to divide it into 8 stages, each stage ends with a crisis that must be resolved to enter the next stage. All right, so we got to look at the book here. Let me pull up the book. What did it say? 8.1?
It is 8.1, yep.
This is page 199, 8.1.
So I'm not having a midlife crisis right now.
We're going to have a
Yes.
midlife crisis today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm 20, man. That gives me 20 more years.
Your life is worth living in
I'm on a boat. I'm on a boat. I don't use it.
But I don't have a trip.
All right, here it is.
I swear I'll use the boat. I swear. Yeah, but they're past midlife.
All right, here's our 8 stages. All right, first one here. So this one's just a little bit more specific. And so each stage it shows what happens there. So the stage is named, then the psychosocial crisis that occurs, and then the predominant social setting, and then the favorable outcome. All right, so infancy. So that's where trust versus mistrust is developed. So that would be kind of the connecting, learning to, we talked about what the name of it is. It's not connections, it's, you are, what is it when you're trying to, bonding theories. All right, theories of bonding. All right, so if children bond well, then trust develops. If they don't bond well, then mistrust develops. The predominant social setting, family, and then favorable outcome, the development of trust in self, parents, and the world. All right, so if things are done well, then you have that good outcome. Early childhood, autonomy versus shame. All right, so here it's in the family, development of autonomy without a loss of self-esteem. So a sense of value in oneself instead of just shame about who you are. 4 to 5, initiative versus guilt. And then family here learns direction and purpose in different activities. So doing things on one's own. Ages 6 to puberty, industry versus inferiority. So participating as a person and in the family, then outside of the home in the school. So then an acquisition of a sense of mastery and competence. Adolescence would be identity and role confusion, so figuring out who you are. Then here is the big switch, which you do get a little bit during school, but the big switch of the social influence being peer groups instead of the family. The development of an ego identity, a coherent sense of self. Young adulthood to age 40, so intimacy versus isolation, whether you're going to be connected or disconnected. Partners in friendships, so different friends, or intimacy through like a marriage relationship. All right, the ability to work toward a career, involvement in extended intimate relationship. 40 to 65, generativity versus stagnation. So having a generative drive is participating or staying still and not really doing much. So new family and work environment. So this would be a time during of transitions, development of concern of those outside the family, future generations in society. Then 65 and older, integrity versus despair. So feeling good about it or not as you age, retirement and impending death. Sense of satisfaction and looking back on life would be a good thing. All right, so this one here just basically divides it into 8 things and talks about major psychological things that can happen during that time. Any thoughts about these? Okay.
What if someone doesn't have that crisis?
What if somebody doesn't have that crisis?
Yeah.
There's not necessarily a crisis to each thing, but I guess it's a time where you're challenged in certain areas to grow. And if you don't grow, let's say you don't grow to maintain independence, then you do struggle to move on to other things in life. Then you can't, take on different roles in life if you don't get past certain things. So I think there's truth to it, that if you don't get past certain things, you can't move on. I mean, obviously you get older, but you might not psychologically or emotionally mature at the same rate as you age. All right. That's our 8 stages. All right, so the middle years. So changes in the middle years. This is the longest phase in marriage with the most changes that occur. All right, the most significant characteristic is the number of exits and entrances of family members. All right, so there's families leaving the home, and then the addition of, say, getting a daughter or a son-in-law, grandchildren. So there's additions as there are subtractions. As people go out, there's more that come in. Sometimes there's the launching of children, and then sometimes you have the re-entry. And I assume that most of your goal is not to do the re-entry, hopefully. But sometimes there's re-entry. In Korean culture, basically if you're not married, you live with your parents until you get married, even if you're like 30 years old.
I can make it quick.
So it's considered pretty normal, which is way different than in the United States. You know, to be 30 and be home is generally viewed upon as a pretty negative thing, but over there it's totally the way it's done. So it's different. And they frequently don't get married till they're in their 30s. Imagine like butting heads on trying to be independent. That's like being half stuck in the teenage stage for a really long time. All right, and then there's also the concept of caring for aging parents and grandparents. So they might come into the picture when they weren't in the picture because they need more help. Or they want to participate in being involved in grandchildren or great-grandchildren. All right, one super great thing is couples usually have fewer financial struggles during this stage. So it's finally, for most couples, you're at the stage where the school debt has finally been paid off. Where the mortgage is manageable, where maybe you have less expenses taking care of young children and both people can be in the workforce. Maybe you've saved well and you can really enter into a stage of more financial security. All right, so this can lead to new opportunities to do different things, gives more freedom, might be more time to do activities, vacations, things that were never done before. All right, the midlife crisis. So this is something that many people go through, you guys have heard of, and it generally occurs sometime during this range of 40 to 60 years old. I think that the midlife crisis is kind of a coming to terms with realizing that you are aging and you've put so much effort into your life in going to school, maybe after going to school, getting married, having children, working so very hard, and realizing that lots of life is passing you by and you haven't really had the opportunity to do the things that you wanted to do. So it's kind of probably where it starts. There's probably also physiological connections to it in that men and women both go through hormonal dips, so menopause and andropause that men go through where you're getting decreased levels in hormones that make you feel not as good as you did before. Right, so it could be hormonally driven, that makes you not feel well, and also realizing that you are getting older and life is passing you by and you don't realize how fast it's gonna go. Frequently, you feel like when you're older that you're just got out of the stage of being 20. You're like, you think that you're young, but you're not. So it's kind of like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? You still have those sort of questions even when you're older. All right, so there could be a sense of emptiness, loss, depression. Have you guys witnessed maybe your parents going through midlife crisis to varying degrees? You have?
I find that, like, the middle-aged people in my family always talk to me, and I was like, dude, like, enjoy yourself while you're young.
Enjoy it, yeah.
It goes
Appreciate
by
it.
real fast. And it's like everybody talks to me like that. I'm like, man, kind
Yeah.
of sad, but, you know. It's all right.
People always say that to new mothers too.
Yeah.
Enjoy them while they're little. You know, you don't know. Yeah, you don't know what you got.
What does that even mean?
So, have anyone have any family members who had an extreme sense of a midlife crisis?
Yeah.
All right, sometimes during midlife crisis, you have a major, change in maybe a job, too. Maybe you had a career in one area, and all of a sudden it's like, no go. You don't want to do it anymore, and you might launch off to choose something else. All right, so changes in the middle years. So marriages can last 50 or 60 years or 70 years. Think about that, that's a real long time. And who you are 50, 60, 70 years from now is so different than who you are on the day you decide to get married. So a huge changes over the years. All right, here's a theory about 4 stages in the marital life cycle by Nichols. All right, 4 different stages. So this is similar in that it coincides with the Levins's 4 eras, about the same sort of age ranges. All right, so the first one, beginning, so mating and marriage, separating from parents, developing an identity as a couple, developing commitment to one another, growing in communication, learning how to resolve, compromise, deal with conflict, and interact as a couple. It's the beginning stage of marriage. Second stage, early years, expanding the base. You're really settling into it. It's not new anymore. Deepening loyalty to one another, better communication, rebalancing roles maybe that you had early in the marriage that you want to change. All right, then the third part, which what we're focusing on now is the middle years, is a time of affirmation and preparation. All right, so you are affirming where you're at, maybe during this stage, and preparing for what the future has. So you've gone through probably raising kids, and you're looking back a lot now. Instead of always looking forward like you did early in marriage, you are looking back and looking forward to see what the future has. All right, later years, consolidation. So that is the time where you're really saying, did I do a good job? And hopefully celebration is part of it, where you're looking back on your life thinking, look at the good that came from this and that, and celebrating the victories. And you're not really looking forward, unless you're looking forward to eternity, but you know you're at your end, basic towards the end, and you're really celebrating it. All right, so 4 stages. All right, so this is the focus on stage 3. So stage 3 was about affirmation and preparation during the middle years. All right, so there's some core tasks to focus on during this stage in marriage. So the first one would be continuing sense of commitment. So you'd have to develop commitment early in marriage, but also remember that commitment is something that you have to work on throughout the marriage. It's not a done deal. So the goal is to create a strong couple boundary, so to keep that strong and bond with one another. Many couples seek therapy during this time to grow and revitalize the relationship that might have suffered. All right, so the relationship at this stage, the couple can probably realize that life has been hard for the last 20 years as we were trying to work, survive, and maybe we need to focus more on our relationship. All right, next core task, caring. So couples must work on maintaining a close, caring relationship and not take for each other for granted, and realize that they might not always be there. Then the next one, contracts. So reworking expectations. What's working, what's not. It's a time of transitions, probably with work roles, particularly if there's one that's a stay-at-home parent or a job change. All right, next task would be communication. So sharing oneself and be willing to understand the other person, both intellectually and emotionally. So still being interested after you've heard the same things for 20 years. You have to choose to still be interested in the other person intellectually and emotionally. Find things about them that you didn't know. Communication is a key element to marital success. So being able to keep that bond of talking to one another and being finding joy in spending time together. Conflict and compromise. So when men and women can go through different directions psychologically as children move out and family dynamics change. All right, so when my kids started leaving the house, I would say it was hard for me because my role changed. It was suddenly like, okay, what am I gonna do with the extra time I have now? Like when I had, my older kids were graduating from high school and my younger ones were in school, I had more time on my hands, so I had to take on more work outside of the home for something to do. So it's a time where you're trying to figure that out. Lack of intimacy, staying connected is common, so it can be a time where where you can get stuck in the routine of what life was like when you were in deep with the kids and you don't know how to navigate marriage going forward. And so it can be a time where marriages either do really well or they do really poorly or they go downhill. So as couples have children leave, they're like, what are we now? Who are we? And maybe they're like, it's been so many years since kids have been in the home. All right, other midlife issues. So the U-shaped curve. All right, we talked about that in the beginning of the class. About how at this age and this stage, the U's generally going up. So there's generally an improvement to things. All right, there's the midlife crisis. During this time, there's a sense of general discontentment, boredom, anger, daydreaming, feeling like you don't really, you're not really happy with where you are, feeling adventurous. My big midlife crisis was probably, when I moved here, I had this desire I always wanted to ride my bike through the Black Hills and do the Mickelson Trail. So this 109-mile bike ride thing. And in around 2001, 2002, there was a student here who told me about it. And so for years, I was like, I want to be able to do this thing. But being a mom, I couldn't leave for 3 days, 3 to 4 days. Well, actually, I leave for 5 days when I do it now. I couldn't leave because I had to take care of the kids. My husband had to work. It was just something I wasn't able to do. And then in 2020, I was like, that's it. I'm getting the bike. And every year I go on a solo camping trip by myself. In September, I ditch my cross-country team, which I love dearly, but I leave them for 5 days to do this adventurous thing. Because I put it off for so long, and then I just decided I'm going to embrace this and do something that I really wanted to do. That is something that I get to do that's a me-focused time when I was not able to do that for so long. So feeling adventurous is definitely a part of being older. I don't know if you guys will be jumping out of planes or, I don't know, scuba diving, jumping out of a plane. Bear fighting?
Skydiving, bungee jumping, snowboarding.
Have you not done snowboarding?
Not yet, that's coming.
I don't know, snowboarding when you're like 50, one mistake and it's all over. I don't know if you want to do that. All right, so some respond more negatively to this stage than others. There's the guy that goes out and buys the sports car sort of concept that you hear about. Guy that buys the sports car and trades in his wife for a younger model. That's kind of like what you think of when you think of the midlife crisis. So it doesn't have to be a huge crisis, but I would say that it is probably a psychological, emotional stage that most people go through during this stage. A definite questioning of your values, how you spend your time, and whether it's something you want to continue doing. What are you missing? What do you need to change? So definitely the questioning does occur. All right, other midlife issues in the parent-child relationship. So early, this would be dividing early and later, middle years. So the first part, families have adolescence in the home. So there's the power struggles, the identity of the child and the parent starts to change. So as children go through adolescence from the parent side, it is learning to navigate that you're no longer, when a baby's little, they love their mom, right? And then when you get to the adolescent stage, mom is no longer cool, right? So there's a different feeling as a parent where this child no longer likes me anymore. So it's an identity change. Then there's the empty nest time, so a time of equalization of power between the parent-child. So instead of there being maybe a power struggle between one another, there's more of a leveling of the fields. All right, so maybe it's a time where you can truly become a friend with your parent. I mean, they might still be a guide, but it can be more on a friendship level, where you're closer connected emotionally than maybe you were when you were younger. All right, also a time of differentiation and separation. So choosing to be different, separate, but also that equalization of power. All right, Avalon, you ready?
Yeah.
She's got the pep. Yeah, she's
I have a
got
lot
the
of
pep.
notes. Okay, I interviewed the other professor
Oh
Thurber
gosh.
about marriage and family.
So I went through the
I was
microscope.
really excited for his takes on everything. So the first question I asked was, what do you find to be the most common mistakes dating couples make here at Trinity?
Oh,
And
interesting.
he had a lot to unpack for this question. So he began right off the bat with saying the over-spiritualization of picking the right one.
Okay, yeah, he hates that.
And he was like, if you have wise counsel in your life, like professors, friends, family, that like they're involved in your life and you're in community and you have good relationships with them, they're gonna be able to tell you like, bro, like that's a bad person, like dump them. Like it's less of like you having to like obsess and stress over every little character flaw or family of origin or anything like that. He was like, if you're a good person and you love God and you have good people in your life, you're probably not going to pick the wrong person.
Amen.
So he was like, don't put so much pressure on yourself to pick the right one. And then he addressed something that I think is really common at Trinity. He was like, you need to stop forcing God to tell you who you're going to marry and if this is the right person. He was like, in the Bible, it gives us wisdom on how to approach relationships, how to treat others, that it's between one male and one female, but it doesn't really give you a laid out plan of, oh, this is a 5-step plan to picking your spouse, or you have to hear from God their exact name, or I've heard hair color, or eye color, or whatever it is. That's not in the Bible. And so he was kind of saying, like, who are you to, like, try to force God to answer your earthly human question? But he's giving you the wisdom. He's giving you the wisdom and, like, the standards to look for. So he's like, why are you trying to force God to do something he didn't say he would do? So he was like, we need to stop doing that to God because we just need to relax a little bit and, ask him for wisdom. Ask people for guidance. Like, you don't have to do it alone. So I thought that was really good. And then he was like, when you're dating each other, you need to stop isolating yourself from your community and from like the people that you trust and that have wise advice, because he was like, they can help your relationship be stronger, they can help you guys grow as a couple. And then he was like, your relationship should be a blessing and a witness to the community around you, especially while you're dating. Because he said when you get married, like you kind of go off by yourselves and like learn to be like one person, but while you're dating, there's not that connection, so you should be blessing others and setting a good example for maybe those that are single or just getting in a relationship or that kind of thing. And I thought that was good because it takes even dating, which maybe isn't addressed in the Bible, and it's trying to honor God in that and bless others through that and make it godly. So I thought that was pretty good.
That's awesome.
And then he also said you need to embrace the culture that you're in. Culture and societal standards like dating for fun occasionally or taking your time, they're not always bad. Sometimes he was like, sometimes people come to Trinity and they're like, oh, I just hate that everyone knows everyone, and like dating here is a little weirder than maybe at your public high school. And he was like that's okay. Like culture has standards, and like they're not always sinful. Sometimes they literally are just good things that you're weird if you don't go with the culture. So he was like, take the pressure off and just kind of go with the flow a little bit more. I asked him what is something Trinity couples could do better to be more prepared for marriage. He said talk. He said talk about finances, kids, learning styles, theology, philosophy, the other person's patterns. Literally try to know everything you can about that person, because he was like, then you won't be so surprised when you get married and you're like, ew, what is this that the other person thinks or does or whatever. The next question I asked was, how do you know when it's the right time to get married or engaged? And he says, well, first you got to like each other and you got to be infatuated with each other. But then you need to know that you truly love the person. And so I asked kind of like, oh, what does that look like? What is like knowing you truly love the person? And he was like, it's an out-of-body experience. And he was like, you realize you have this out-of-body experience, and all of a sudden it just like dawns on you that you're willing to be like hurt by this person, you're willing to have to forgive, you're willing to endure and suffer with this person through life. You're choosing to love them and stay with them no matter what. What other, who knows, like physical issues, mental health issues, family of origin things. He was like, it's this moment where you're like, I don't care what I feel in the moment, I'm choosing this person and choosing to stick by them. And I thought that was good because, I don't know, growing up it's like, oh, love is a feeling, love is like when you know. But it was kind of more like, it's a choice that you're like, okay, this is the person I'm going to choose forever. So then he said, then, once you know that you love them, you have to work on the logistics, and he was like, every college student is thinking about money. So he was like, talk to people, talk to older people, ask for lots of advice, and I'll get into that in a bit. But then he said, once you know that you're going to marry this person, don't be engaged during that season of knowing you're going to marry them for more than a year. And I asked, why is that? And he said, premarital sex often happens during engagement for the Christians that he's mentored. So if you want to, avoid sin, honor God, make it easier on your relationship, don't be in that season for more than a year. And he would say, the less is the better. Just get married, is what he said. And then he did give this encouragement that statistics for Christians, there was a couple things he laid out, but it was more conservative values, doesn't believe in divorce. So kind of what we would hear, the ideal Trinity person. The divorce rate stays the same from age 20 to 30 at around 3%. So it doesn't matter if you're getting married at 20 or 30, your divorce rate, likelihood of that doesn't change. So it's okay to get married young is what he was saying. So you don't need to be freaked out, oh, if I get married young, I'm going to get divorced. No. He
Amen.
said, stop putting that. Don't let the statistics scare you.
Amen.
And then he was saying when you have that emotional and mental and spiritual commitment, but not the legal and the physical to that, it puts strain on the relationship, so you don't want that period to be for super long, which I thought was really practical. So I asked about just how to be an effective parent with your children in this terms of discipline, because this is something I want to learn. You guys have different takes than my parents did, and I've really respected them, so I asked a couple questions, and he was like, don't view discipline as you're punishing them, and oh, your kid is a criminal. Treat it as, oh, my kid broke relationship with me or with God, and because of breaking relationship, there is going to be a consequence. That's just how it is once they become adults. But then you as the leader always go restore that relationship. That way your family, there's not insecurity, there's not fear of being loved or being liked or being valued. So I thought that was really good, and anyone can do that. You can easily go tell your kid, I love you and I like you and we're okay. This is just how we're moving forward. So, and then, so I asked him financially, like if you're gonna be young and be married, what do you do? How do you approach that? And he told me, you're a college student. If you get married, you're gonna be poor, and just remind yourself that you're not poor because you're a bad person. You're poor by choice. Like you're doing good things. Getting married is good. Getting an education is good. And he said college students have debt, so debt is debt whether you're married or you're single. And then he just said ask a lot of questions, ask for help, utilize food pantries, cut down on spending. You also Pell Grants, loans, state insurance if you qualify for all of that. He was just saying like ask questions, find out, research, and you'll be able to figure out. It's not impossible. So that was like the biggest part of my interview. But yeah, that's it.
My husband cried like severely through our wedding. Like I'm talking like pouring down tears to the point where my mother was like, "What's wrong with him? Is he have allergies?" I was like, "Oh my God." He's just, no, I felt the gravity of, I guess, the decision of the choice to need to love somebody forever and how serious that is. And anyway, it was sweet, but. All right. Okay, so parent-child relationship paradigm shift. So children care for the parents. So this was the, I was telling you guys about how most of the time it's the females, the girls who take care of the parents when they get older. And this concept of a sandwich generation where you, during the middle years, you might be caring for your own children and your parents at the same time. So added stressors with that. All right, and then grandparents as parents. So my grandmother had legal custody of me, so I fell into this category. So some reasons are for drug, alcohol abuse, child abuse, neglect, parental incarceration, teen pregnancy, poverty, abandonment, divorce, any of those things. And just like, I was thinking about this the other day, what if I have to be like, I was thinking about the sacrifice that my grandmother made for me. Like, now that I'm at the grandma stage, thinking that, what would happen if I would have to take on caring for one of my grandchildren, like she did? And I guess I'm appreciating her more in the sacrifice that she made. That she took care of me from the time that I was 10 until I was married, and was, at an older age decided to do that. So a huge sacrifice, and hopefully none of us have to do that, but hopefully we would if we had to. All right, generally these families struggle financially. None of you had grandparents that cared for you, right? As a parent? You kind of did a little bit? All right. All right, well-being in the middle years. So educational status and well-being. So those with higher education generally feel more in control of their lives and their futures. So there's a higher level of self-satisfaction for those who have more education as they go through this stage. Social class affects self-esteem, sense of well-being, overall health. So when you feel good about where you are, you generally physically show that too. Lower social classes have more stressors, so when you don't have money, there definitely is more stress. Middle adults are very focused on work and relationships. They have lower levels of distress and higher levels of well-being and fulfillment. All right, so this is one thing that we can stop here. I would say this is so true. When you get older, I feel like emotionally, mentally, you get a lot healthier. All right, you get a lot more. With maturity comes a lot of blessings that you didn't experience. I would never want to go back to being in my 20s and 30s. All right, 40s I'm okay with. But 20s and 30s, just the way I responded to the world, responded to life, problems, the emotional way that, you know, I had the things that I had to go through. I don't ever want to go back to that. So it's something to look forward to with life experience. You do grow and get past things and mature and respond to even, you know, maybe even harder things in a way easier way than you did before. And you sometimes, you know, you, like, I look back and think, man, I wish that I would have done better during this stage, you know, because it feels like it would have been easier now as you get older. So you have a sense of, in life you grow, you know, you grow intellectually, you grow emotionally, you grow spiritually. But during this middle stage, there's this thing about the physical side, where you hit the wall of, it's the one area where you don't really get better, all right, where you experience deterioration, all right, so you start feeling more aches and pains. Me as a runner, I'm like, the times keep getting slower and this doesn't seem okay, because your whole mindset is that everything in your life improves, but yet physically we go down. All right, I guess we were created, you know, when God created us, the physical downfall wasn't part of the original plan before we chose to sin, so it's part of the downfall. But it's one thing that I think is a difficult adjustment with aging, is the physical side of it being so against the grain of normal life, where you think towards growth and where it goes down there. All right, middle adults can blossom more in their spiritual maturity, usually because you have more time, you have more experience, you've seen God come through in so many different things. Many decide to give their time and efforts to the world, to ministry, so it can be a time to launch out. Do you guys have any of your parents doing different things in the world of ministry as you guys have left the home? All right, usually, you know, people say, well, when the kids leave, I'm going to go, I don't know, go do missions, or they buy the RVs and then they drive around the country, or they come to Trinity in the summer and work here. But it can be a time where you can go back to doing more things that you couldn't do before in the areas of ministry. All right, later years. All right, before we do later years, we'll do Sam.
So I did a research paper on divorce, and so here's some of the statistics that it gave me. There are 86 divorces every hour compared to 230 marriages an hour, and the amount of marriages per year is also decreasing. There is an estimate that says 41% of first marriages will end in divorce. This is followed by a failure rate of 60% for second marriages, and then people that get married a third time have a 73% chance of
Fourth and
divorce.
fifth is probably higher.
Yeah, and they didn't even have those two listed. But and then the average lifespan before divorce is 8 years, which we talked about in class also. And it said the same thing on the website I was looking at. And then when I looked at a lot of the causes for divorce, a lot of it is like a lack in good communication. And so like that comes with like finances, or like being able to like handle conflict. Like a lot of it comes back to like good communication, and then like having the right values. So some things it said to avoid this problem is try to get mentored by an older Christian couple, ideally from your church, or a couple that you're close with that can do like premarital counseling or things like that, so you can walk through different like situations you might go into and how you're going to handle those situations. And then it also talked about like not like normalizing divorce, like as Christians, like knowing that, like going into it knowing that like I'm not going to get divorced, like that's not something that should even be on your mind. But like if you know somebody that's been divorced, that doesn't mean you like turn your back on them as a Christian. Like you still love them, and like things happen. And so we shouldn't normalize divorce, but going into it we should know that it's not a contract, it's a covenant, is one of the quotes it had.
together. Now we're in later years, so this is the time of consolidation and celebration. So you're looking back and celebrating, hopefully, the good things. All right, core tasks. So again, commitment. So this goes on. We're talking, if you're married 50, 60 years, there's still, there are people that get divorced when they're old. It does happen, which seems absolutely crazy after you've invested so many years into the relationship. But commitment still has to be a part of it. All right, so retirement brings a loss of career identity, so it can be a difficult adjustment for people. Readjustment to the time spent together. We always have this in my house when my husband works during the year and then he comes home in the summer. There's a little bit of a readjustment of the time together. But this would be a permanent readjustment of time being spent together, so it's getting used to maybe if you've spent years of working 50 weeks a year and then suddenly you're home and it's a whole different world. Changes in the relationship with extended family, so as they age, maybe losing certain family members or family members being far away. So it's a time to focus on support through the changes and find meaning in it. Core task, obviously you need to continue caring, communicating. One of the key areas would be support facing fears of losing independence and productivity. So as things go downhill physically, dealing with the fears or maybe the consequences of it if it's already happened. Productivity with losing work. Celebrate the achievements you might still be having. Conflict compromise, so there's less conflict than in younger years. All right, you'll probably be fighting less by now. Accepting the past. All right, well-being in the later years. So there's more elderly out there before because people are aging. And we have to remember to not see it as the worst time in life. It can be a time where you have more money, a time to have more time to spend on your spiritual life, community involvement, church, learning new things. You guys see how senior centers try to teach the old people all new things all the time.
Kapong.
What is it?
Kapong.
Kapong?
In the senior center, I saw a video of that.
It's okay.
Like beer pong.
Okay.
Oh. I saw a video of some seniors doing that.
I wonder what I'm gonna do in this stage. I still wanna learn to play tennis, but I don't know if I'm gonna be doing that at 80. If I'm not I can barely bend down now, so I don't know.
My mom plays like 80-year-olds in her tennis league back home right
She
now.
does?
Yeah, or like my dad does. There's like people from like 20 to like 75, 80. It's crazy.
We played tennis during cross-country camp last year. Yeah, that was a good day. We gotta do that again.
We can do
Hey, speaking of cross-country, if anybody is interested in being on cross-country, we would love, 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 love to have any of you. It doesn't matter if you can move or not move at the moment. We will teach you how to run, and you will have the time of your life.
It's true.
So truly, everybody is welcome. It's an open team. We do not have short distance.
Short cross country.
No.
That's crazy.
What's the shortest distance?
The shortest distance you're going to run is 5 miles in a race. Yes. For the boys, the girls run 3.1 to 3.75. That's just racing. But anyway, you are all welcome. How did that come up? Oh, it was about new learning experiences. Yeah, so have new learning experiences before you get old.
I rode 4 miles in like 4
He's knows what's up.
Under 10-minute mile is a respectable time. All right, emotional well-being in later years, so it even gets even better. If you thought it was good in the middle years, you see a lot of happy older people. There's a lot of depressed ones too. But the depression is usually from loneliness, and also think about the massive amount of loss that older people have.
True.
Like, I'm constantly getting phone calls from my husband's parents are in the 80s and 90s, and they're always saying so-and-so died. You know, they have like large families, so there's always, and you know, she calls leaving messages crying, you can hear her crying on the phone. There's just, when you're at that stage, the sense of the amount of loss around you is massive. Like you're feeling the hurt of losing so many people that you loved. But in general, emotional well-being is higher. Many older adults have stated that having family and friends was the biggest key to a meaningful and vital life. So the main thing that they look back on their life and say, this is what made it great. You know, people on their deathbed or have near-death experiences, like you're in some major car accident, all that people ever think about is family. You know, people they love and the connections that they make. All right, so they say family and friends, followed by taking care of one's health, one's spiritual life, and community involvement. All right, let's stop there today. All right, happy Monday. We'll see you Monday. And